Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Logan Writers Festival interview today. I am here with Ian Mathieson, and he is going to be talking to us all about editing. He is one of our speakers for this year, and he is a fabulous editor. So, please, Ian, let me know a little bit more about the type of editing that you do and some of the books that you've written.
Well, thank you, Rhiannon. Editing, from my point of view, is a bridge between a writer and a publisher and readers. It's a different set of skills from writing, and I know that to my own personal cost, because whenever I write something, I do some writing as well. If I try to edit it myself, I stuff it up badly. So
I know that feeling.
So I'm a fairly experienced editor, but whenever I write anything, I get a friend of mine to edit it, and he's a writer, and he gets me to edit his stuff.
You know what,
The
it
reason
works
I
so much
say
easier.
the reason I say a bridge is that writers pour out their heart, pour out their thoughts, pour out their spirit, pour out their stories. Framing that in a way that's attractive to an editor or to a reader is sometimes a different set of skills. And that's one of the things that editors can add. It's not just about punctuation and spelling and stuff like that, all of which are very important, of course, because they ease the readability.
Mm.
And there are a lot of conventions about that in the standards that are tried and proven. But an editor can help looking at the structure of a story, looking at its rhythms and flows, looking at the levels of excitement that it creates, looking at the story arc, and things like that, which are things that make a manuscript attractive to a publisher and more accessible to readers.
Yes,
There
absolutely.
you go. I've gone on a bit, but that's
Well, being able to tell a clear story is an art in itself, but every work needs editing. I always say to everyone, you can edit garbage, so you're better off getting something onto the page, but the editing is what turns it into a diamond.
Yes, I sometimes say that the editing process is analogous to the prisms and lenses in a set of binoculars. They exist to make everything clearer without being perceived,
Mm.
without having any existence in their own right.
Oh, I love that.
So
That's
that's my
beautiful.
analogy for what the value that I think editing adds. Now, you asked me about what I've written.
Because I
Um,
know that you have been attached to a few books.
well, I've written a lot of stuff over my fairly long life. I worked for the Commonwealth government for 10 years, and I wrote a whole lot of speeches and cabinet submissions and papers then.
Oh my gosh.
As a business consultant for 30 years, I've written hundreds of reports, submissions, analyses, board papers, and stuff like that. More recently, I've written 6 books that have been published. In 2002, I co-wrote a book called The Effective Leader.
Yes, I have that one here in my desk pile.
Oh, you have good taste then. And it was published by HarperCollins. And then I was invited to write 5 books by a Japanese publisher called IBC Publishing, which were written in English and targeted at people for whom English is a second language.
Oh, yes, yep.
And they were very successful too.
Oh, that you know
So
what? That's such a good idea to have that focus when you're writing a particular book. because it not only builds the confidence of the people that are learning English and that are or learning any language really, but I feel like it can be less patronizing. Because a
Mm.
lot of the time you get told to read children's books in another language to learn the language, but when you're an adult, it feels a bit silly. So being able to have someone acknowledge that they're giving you a language that you're learning, understanding that this is your second language, is a really powerful position to be writing from.
Thank you. I found it interesting. I asked them why they selected an aging Caucasian male from Australia. And they said that they wanted the people who are using these books as part of their development to have the nuance and authenticity of the English language,
Mm,
to not have it as something that was written by people for whom English was the second language.
mm,
And I thought that was fairly understanding of them.
that's very nice. So
But
the
I started,
Japanese.
sorry.
Oh,
Hmm?
sorry, I was just about to say the Japanese works were your most recent.
Yes, that was from about 2019 to 2009 to 2015.
Oh my goodness. Now I am really curious. I know we've just passed an election, but when you were writing for Cabinet, and you said you were writing, was it speeches and proposals, or
Yes, that's right. Mm.
so? Who are you writing them for? I'm so curious about that. Are
I
you
wrote a
allowed to
couple of
say?
speeches for Gough Whitlam.
No way. Oh my
Indeed.
gosh.
I'm telling them my age there, of course. And it started with Jack McEwen, who was Deputy Prime Minister.
Oh, that's
And then I wrote
incredible.
speeches for people like such as Jim Cairns and Ian Sinclair
Yeah.
and others. Um, I don't know whether I had a gift of the gab or a bit of a gift for a bit of bull, you know. I
You didn't
seem to be
write
able
the
to.
you didn't
I
write
seem to
the
be able to
Kurz Kerr line.
take a brief and write a speech that actually got to air. Yeah,
Oh wow. Oh wow, what a claim. That's amazing. Um a lot of writers don't realize they can get work in these sorts of positions either. That
that's right. Mm.
it's not just fiction writing or journalistic things that you can be writing. You can be doing a lot of other stuff that gives you life experience that lends itself to your fiction.
Indeed, a lot of people get freelance work writing for magazines and stuff
Mhm.
like that. Mm.
Mhm. And a lot of these magazines will accept fiction stories too. Sometimes they want you to go out and do interviews with people, which leans into journalistic, but then writing speeches for people is very
Mm.
popular these days as well.
Mm.
Um, if you've got that gift, it goes back to like ancient times or, at least written medieval times where you see evidence of people that have been employed specifically to write for business people or for royals. If they're doing any kind of speech, that speech is normally written first and then they practice it.
Well, the one of the things that differentiate us from other creatures uh, is that we tell stories,
Mm,
and storytelling is demonstrated to go back into the dim, dark mists of time.
mm,
It's the way that we create an understanding of our creation, our environment. So the wonderful creation stories that abound across all cultures are a cohesive element. And the capacity to be inventive and tell stories and creative to tell stories builds on the fact that for a very long time, there was very little written language.
yeah.
And oral history and oral tradition were critical to understanding our place in space and our relationships. So storytelling to me is up there with opposing thumbs.
You know what? I've always said that telling stories is part of the fabric of being human. I feel like all of the arts end up being part of what makes us human. Music, dance, visual arts, storytelling,
Mm,
and acting. All of these
mm,
things are parts of us as we're children. We love to do them. We innately are uh, led to them. And in our heart of hearts, it's what we enjoy the most.
yes. So storytelling is embedded in all of those things that you mentioned.
Mm.
Music is storytelling.
Mm-hmm.
I think in a very sophisticated way, it's storytelling from the spirit without words and so on.
Mm. Oh,
So
yes, absolutely.
to me, editing is a privilege. It's a joy. Um, I started editing work, would you believe, in 1967 when the Australian government press first produced the Australian style manual. That was edition one. Edition seven has just been released last year.
Oh, I'm gonna have to look that up.
And well, it's the go-to about stylistic issues in Australia.
Mm.
It's the one to which I refer a lot. But I was privileged because the department that I worked for sent me on a course to familiarise me with that style manual, and that
Yeah.
started me thinking about how you write and the quality of writing. And I think that fed into uh, parts of my career at that time.
Excellent.
Um, a friend of mine um, asked me to edit some of her books since about 1995. And so I became an impromptu, unpaid freelance editor. From then on, I might add every now and again, I managed to squeeze a lunch out of it, but that was about it. And through the period to 2018, when I retired from my real job, I did some editing for her and one or two other people just occasionally. And then when I retired, um, I certainly wasn't going to just go and play bowls and die. So I hung my shingle out as a freelance editor because I loved words, I loved reading,
Mm.
and I thought it would be a good occupation without time constraints. It isn't start at 8, finish at 5, you know.
Yes.
Uh,
Yeah, you like
and
with editing, you really get to choose your best hours,
yes,
much like with
um,
writing.
and I joined the Institute of Professional Editors, and I was fortunate to be recognised as a professional member there. And I valued that because it's a wellspring of support and reference. Sometimes a tricky question comes up, and we share the question and share the answers.
Mm. Oh, I like
Um,
that.
and that's, and that's very enriching. And I also got pinged with the job of being the events officer. So I had it once a month to organise a PD presentation on stuff of relevance to editors. And then I got pinged to be co-chair of the Standing Committee on Professional Development. So I'm kind of embedded in that area as well.
That's amazing.
But since I hung my shingle out 4 years ago, I've edited 40 plus texts, and the joy of it is just the doing of it. Very few of those have been hard work.
Mm.
Nearly all of them have been interesting and exciting, you know, and they range across a whole lot of genre, across thrillers and historical fiction, broad fiction, illustrated children's books. Rhiannon, try editing an illustrated children's story. There was one that had 273 words in it, and it took hours and hours backwards and forwards because at that level of intensity, you have to pick each word up with a pair of tweezers and hold it up to the light. And then
Yeah.
you put it into an atomic spectrophotometer and check the density, and you know, because every
Oh,
word is so important. Mm,
mm-hmm. People think writing a children's book and illustrating it is very easy, and it is not. The level
it's
of detail and work that you have to pour into it to make it a good book, even just bottom of the bar good book, is phenomenal. My hat goes off
exactly.
to anyone that can write children's stories and with
Mm,
such short form as well.
mm.
Um, yeah, it's like they are a thesaurus and they know exactly what to put in when it is a good children's book. Like it's surgical. It feels
And
surgical.
it's a classic instance of the partnership. I mean, I regard myself as a partner with the writers that I edit. Very seldom do I get a manuscript here, edit this, and send it back. Almost always, I'm able to talk to the writer. I
Mm,
talk to them about uh, background stuff.
yeah,
What are they trying to achieve? Who do they want to reach? Why are they writing? And get to know them a bit.
such
Um,
important questions.
and and that partnership thing becomes more intense when you're with an illustrated children's storybook, because the partnership always involves the illustrator,
Yeah.
because the illustrations have to have the tone and pitch to perfectly match the story. Or every now and again, the story might actually have to be tweaked just a little bit to fit with the perfect illustration.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's amazing. We have, I think in the English language, we have 184,000 words approximately. And choosing the right one for the right job. It's just magic, absolute magic.
Well, indeed, pitching, understanding the pitch. If you're working on an illustrated children's storybook for say 8 to 10, the language is very, very different from 5 to 7.
Yes,
And if you're editing a YA book, which I'm doing at the moment, which is pitched at say 12 to 14, you have to make a lot of choices about the words too.
definitely.
So at the festival, um, I'll talk about things that I think a writer might usefully know about editing and about editors.
Mm.
Um, and that's that partnership bridging concept.
I think
Um,
that's a lot of people talk about how they edited their own book to save cost. But in the end, they always go back, like if they're dedicated to the craft, they go back and they get a proper editor to go through their work. I think a lot of them get very nervous about selecting the right editor for them. Um, so your talk in particular is going to be really good because focusing on it being a partnership will be very valuable for changing the mindsets of a lot of our budding authors in Logan.
I hope so. Yeah. Um, I suppose that I'd have to confess that I don't mind talking to writers about editing. I, I quite enjoy it because you get the conversations going.
Yeah,
The interactions can be so lovely. So I'm looking forward very, very much to that.
beautiful. Oh, it's so exciting, honestly. It's going to be so good to have an editor come this year and actually be able to speak. Like I said, editing is what takes so many stories from just carbon to diamonds. And it makes such a big difference to have a thorough and caring editor go through your work.
Thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for joining me today, Ian. This has been lovely.
It's
And we
my
will.
pleasure.
Thank
My
you.
pleasure, Rhiannon. And I want to congratulate you and the Chamber for the initiative in creating the festival. This is your
Thank
second
you.
year. I know it'll be powering on from last year's formative experience. And I really want to wish you well. And I'm happy in my little way to be able to support you a bit.
Thank you so much. It is an absolute pleasure to have you come along. So, when you are looking for an editor, please come and see Ian on the 9th and 10th of September. We will be able to get you to see him at his stall and also come and see his talk because it is going to be exactly what the writers ordered.
Thank you, Rhiannon.